let's look at this atrocious lead tracker. Guys, 4 minutes into that fourth quarter, the Celtics led by their biggest margin of the game, guys. A 12-point lead for the Celtics. And what do you see happen out of the Houston Rockets, the hungry and young Houston Rockets? They chipped and chipped and chipped and continue to chip away until eventually you can see there in the little last centimeter of this score tracker, the Houston Rockets absolutely steal this game from Boston. Guys, tonight, what went wrong in that just debacle, that just terrible of a stretch of the fourth quarter that we saw?
You know, I don't think the Celtics can handle when players talk trash to them and convert.
Oh.
Like I genuinely, and I said this earlier in the game. I said I do not like Jaylen Brown talking back to Dillon Brooks whatsoever. And what did Dillon Brooks do the whole rest of the game? In fact, that lead tracker, when that fourth quarter, the lead started to slip, it went from 11 to 7 to 4, then up 2 for Houston. That's when Dillon Brooks came back into the game. That is it. Right. That is exactly what happened. But through the course of this game, man, oh my goodness, Tatum came alive in that third quarter. Had a couple plays there towards the end of the fourth, but we talk about the rotations with Joe. In my opinion, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have to be better. They have to be better, especially down the stretch. Who's turning the ball over? Who's missing shots? Who's the defensive mislapses coming up? Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. That's it. Obviously, there's 3 other guys on the floor that need to execute just as well as those two. But those 2 guys, the ball's going to be in their hands. The ball's in their court. They have to be better. There's no excuse. We want to hold certain bench players accountable. Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard for staying in their roles. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, we have to hold accountable. Our 2 best players, we have to hold accountable as well. They have to be better. Tonight, I'm putting this loss on it. Obviously, the whole team lost this game. I know everybody's favorite quote. It took a whole team effort to lose this one. But Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, Seamus, don't stop smirking. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown hurt me tonight. That's what hurt me tonight, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, it almost felt artificial during the first half of today's game when the Celtics were able to create that lead. You obviously had players hitting their shots. You had Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis in the first quarter going back to back, hitting each shot, hitting ridiculous 3-pointers. I saw Kristaps, the first shot of the game was just to knock me off my feet, but other than that, Jason Tatum not holding up and having 0 points, that is a very big sign of concern, especially if the team is going to win. I thought Jason Tatum was going to be able to turn it on during the second half of tonight's game. Obviously, he started cutting to the rim, but it just was too late for it, and it didn't really help this team out in the long run or help win this game, especially when they were getting beat on the defensive side of things. But it seemed it was just really the Houston Rockets that I want to give credit to their depth. They did a good job tonight. They were almost seemed like a fresher team just because of how much talent they have coming off the bench. It seemed like every time that the Celtics were taking a player out, there wasn't anyone to fill in for them. We had Kristaps Porzingis playing tonight. He was in foul trouble pretty much the entire game from the first quarter on to the fourth when he was riding 5 fouls, and he couldn't really even be considerate of trying to get into the nitty-gritty things down in the paint with Sengun and Brooks when it came down to it. But I really just think that this team has a very big problem with getting too comfortable. And it seems like that is the theme of the Boston Celtics during their inconsistent runs. They are way too comfortable with the situation that they're in, the position that they're in. I'm not sure if I haven't checked the standings in probably about a day or so. I don't know how close the Knicks are to creeping
I
up
wouldn't
on them.
bother looking.
No, it doesn't even matter. But they're just, I was expecting a lot more coming into this home stretch. They had a lot of confidence coming off that win against the Dallas Mavericks. Jaylen Brown was quoted saying that, oh, it's going to start soon, this winning streak. We're going to get it back. And usually when that happens and Jaylen Brown says that the tides are changing or the team's the energy is about to shift for the team, it usually they follow through with it. But tonight they were punched in the mouth and they just haven't found a way to respond all season whenever that happens. I mean, you look back to the Orlando Magic game a couple weeks ago when you had the Orlando Magic playing the most physical type of ball that we've seen in a long time. And as we've been saying all season, every single team in the NBA, all 30 teams, no one's going to see the Boston Celtics on their schedule and say it's an off night. They're going to come into the game knowing that they have a chance to create a major upset and be able to gain that confidence within themselves by beating a team who is supposedly supposed to be the defending champions and supposed to be the front runners to contend for a championship this year. And it's kind of really faded away. And I honestly don't know if this team needs a real. I think the inconsistency needs to stop either way, and I think it stops either with a winning streak or, knock on wood, worst case scenario, I feel like this team needs to get their asses handed to them like once or twice in a row to really.
I mean, they already
saw
have.
that.
What?
What do you
We
mean?
just saw that.
The Lakers
We just-
game, losing games like
I'm
this.
talking
Atlanta,
about a
Houston.
streak. It's been way
We
too
have.
up
It's
and
been
down.
2 months. It's been 2 months. It has been
2 months.
No.
Can I just preface something real quick? Real quick. I just want to listen to this and shout out Greenberg, Stool Greeny on X, whatever it should be Twitter, X, on for this tweet, guys. Now the Celtics, when they led by that 12-point lead in that fourth quarter, right? 8:38 to play, 8 minutes left. Now from 8:38 to 4:53 of that fourth quarter, the Boston Celtics, they went without a single point. In those possessions, we got a Tatum turnover on a lob to Keita, a shot clock violation turnover. Jaylen Brown missed 14-footer. Drew Holiday missed 15-footer. Drew Holiday turnover. Drew Holiday blocked three-point attempt. In that same stretch of offensive struggle, guys, the Houston Rockets on the offensive end of the floor went 5 of 6, shooting 83%, knocking down a three, guys. They absolutely, Boston just gave the game away. They stopped executing on offense, and they said, well, hell, if we're not scoring on offense, if there's a rough stretch, why even guard them on defense?
Yeah, defensively is really, for me personally, where some of the biggest concerns are with this Boston Celtics team at this moment in time, because effort will show on the defensive end of the floor, and the Celtics, they'll have moments where they look like an elite defensive squad. On Saturday, got the day right that time, against the Dallas Mavericks, there were moments in that game where the Celtics legitimately looked elite defensively. Go back to the Warriors game. Same ordeal. Go back to the Magic game. The Celtics looked elite defensively, and it all has to do with how physical they're guarding their opponent, where they are in terms of positioning on the floor relative to themselves and the ball and the rest of the defense, and what the team, of course, their opponent is trying to do. It has everything to do with their effort, physicality, intensity on the defensive end of the floor, their awareness on that end of the floor as well. The Celtics, when they're locked in defensively, they are an elite defensive squad. They have one of the best defensive backcourts in the entire NBA, if not NBA history. I know one of them, they were out tonight. Derek White was out of the lineup on this specific occasion, but they have one of the best backcourts defensively in NBA history. They have Tatum and Brown, 2 elite wings. They have Kristaps Porzingis sitting up there as a 7'3" center in their starting lineup. Then off the bench, you have Al Horford, who really at times has been just phenomenal for a 38-year-old on the defensive end of the floor this season. Pritchard, he defends his ass off every single game, no matter what. Sam Hauser, of course, was out tonight. I'm not going to say anything about him defensively this year at all, but I'm just going to note that he was out of the lineup. Luke Cornett defensively has been pretty good this season in terms of his defensive presence. Even Keita when he comes out onto the floor. And let's say this about Xavier Tillman real quick before we still go back into the defense and talk about it. Xavier Tillman, we talked about this with Xavier last month. Xavier on the show, not Xavier Tillman, of course. But on the show here, we were talking about how Joe Mazzulla, why is he trying to use Xavier Tillman as his three-point shooter? What is going on there? He is somebody who can really bang down inside the paint. And as a three-point shooter, he's always been a sub 30% three-point shooter. Well, tonight, you throw out Xavier Tillman into the lineup next to Keita, who right there, okay, I understand the double bigs tonight because if you look at the Houston Rockets roster, their only two big guys are essentially Şengün and Steven Adams. And Steven Adams isn't exactly the greatest center at this point in his career. So you basically only have Şengün out there. So the Celtics, they were going double big a lot tonight with Cornett and Porzingis specifically, even Keita out there a lot as well. But then in the first quarter, you bring out Keita and Tillman. Well, those are two guys right there who are not giving you anything from the perimeter, straight up, not giving you anything. You pair him with Tatum, you pair him with Brown, and Tatum and Brown flip-flopped at the end of the first quarter, so it was one or the other. Then you pair him with Walsh, who does nothing with the ball in his hands, and essentially Pritchard as well. So you have two offensive options out there if you're the Boston Celtics. At that point in time, you have either Pritchard or Tatum and two bigs who don't shoot from beyond the arc, and one of them in Xavier Tillman, well, he shoots anyway, and he's 0 of 3 on the night from the field, 0 of 2 from 3, and it just highlights how Joe Mazzulla, I've not been a fan of his experimentation as of late, or really lack thereof, and then coming into tonight and experimenting, but also on top of that, he apparently has no idea how to use Xavier Tillman, and we've already had this conversation about Xavier Tillman earlier this season when we came on here after a game against the Pistons talking about it. But in terms of the defensive end of the floor of the Boston Celtics, just naming out all the players, tonight, the defensive end of the floor was the reason as to why Dillon Brooks and Amen Thompson had career nights. Because if you look at their numbers tonight, Amen Thompson, 13 of 19 from the floor. And the biggest highlight of the night was his game winner down the stretch against the Boston Celtics with 0.7 left on the shot clock, or sorry, not shot clock, just the game clock in general. And that play, Jaylen Brown, he has to put a body into him. He has to create that wall between himself and the rim and not let Amen Thompson get such an easy shot. And even that shot Amen Thompson had beforehand against Kristaps Porzingis. Porzingis actually, he contested that quite well, but that was, again, way too open, way too close to the basket. That's what we also want to highlight here, how close these shots were to the basket specifically. Amen Thompson, he's becoming a phenomenal player in the NBA. He's in his second year. I believe he's going to be potentially an all-star level player one day with his ability out there on the floor. And with Ime Udoka as a head coach, you never know where his ceiling is going to go. We already saw where Ime Udoka took Brown and Tatum during that one season in 21-22. What he can do with Amen Thompson is going to be something spectacular to watch in the future. And don't forget, too, he has a twin in Detroit. I know you know about this, Justin Osir Thompson. Now, he's not having as great of a season as Amen Thompson, but Amen Thompson certainly give it up to him. But on the other end, Dillon Brooks, 13 of 23 for the night.
Don't even read it.
10 of 15. 10 of 15 from 3. That is a Houston Rockets franchise record of threes made in a game. And Dillon Brooks, he was talking all the ish all night long, even giving kisses to the crowd. Those kisses, you know who he was imitating there? Mr. Jason Tatum. You don't think he was watching film of Jason Tatum weeks prior leading up to this game and going, yep, I see that move right there, and I'm going to do it when I hit all of these threes in front of the Garden crowd. 10 of 15 tonight from Dillon Brooks from three-point land, and this just highlights the terrible defensive effort at times for the Boston Celtics in this game, because really in the first quarter, they started out well, and it's indicative in that lead tracker. The beginning of the first, beginning of the fourth, Celtics played extremely well on both ends of the floor. But then all of a sudden, you're looking at the end of the first quarter, and the Houston Rockets, they have 31 points. up on the board. You look at the fourth quarter, oh, the Celtics are up 12. All of a sudden, you allow a 13-0 run. And Rob, you already brought up the stats from that run by the Houston Rockets. They go 5 of 6 from the floor. And really, it all came down to the end of the game when two defensive mistakes happen. Oh, what is this?
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to me. I mean, I didn't know. It's in a couple months, folks, but I guess we're doing it early this year.
What was that?
But I don't know. Two defensive mistakes and balloons. That's essentially what the Celtics looked like apparently out on the floor. That's what the Houston Rockets saw in front of them, is just balloons they could smack out of the way, because ultimately that Şengün cut to the rim, there's no backside help on that play whatsoever. Nobody to come and slide over, which that could be a result of a good play call by Ime Udoka, a good ATO by Ime Udoka as well, just getting everybody out of the paint. But also Luke Cornett just completely lets Şengün go around him. Wide open dunk inside the lane. Next play, you love what Jason Tatum did, and that's actually a frustrating play because you look at that and go, well, why couldn't you do that in the first half, Tatum? Why can't you do that throughout all of these games?
Ever.
Why? Because that play, he has Amin Thompson, who's an all NBA level defender on him. And he just takes him to the rim. He takes him to the rim for 2, ties the game. And then the next possession, Amin Thompson gets the ball. We already talked about this. Jaylen Brown's defending the play like it's the second quarter or like it's the first quarter or like it's not the biggest possession of the entire game, and just, lets him hit him and he goes flying. Where's the resistance? The hips, the feet, the shoulders for Jaylen Brown. Where's the resistance? That was ridiculous. That was absolutely ridiculous for an all-NBA level player. That was absolutely ridiculous for a player who's going to be an all-star this season. And it's absolutely ridiculous for a player who has tremendous prided himself on being one of the best defenders on the Boston Celtics for years now, and somehow gives up that play down the stretch. And I think it really highlights to me that maybe this team this season at this point in time, they are tired. They are tired. They don't have the energy to bring every single night. They don't have it every single possession, because we can see the greatness within the little streaks coming through the window. If you shine a light through a window, you can see those lights, those beams of greatness coming through the window for the Boston Celtics. Yet the shades aren't open all the time, folks. They're not open. We only see the beams. You see the shade for the Boston Celtics the rest of the game, and it's very indicative in that lead tracker. It's very indicative to me on the defensive end of the floor specifically, and it came out at the worst point in this game down the stretch. Really, this is a theme with the Celtics as of late. Just make a stop. Just make a slew of stops. You're scoring on one end of the floor. Just make a stop. Just make a slew of stops. They can't, and we don't have any confidence in them doing so either. And I have no idea when this is going to turn around, because it seems like everybody knows every single problem that's going on, and the team, it's not as if there's a piece or the personnel is all wacky like 21-22 and we're going, just take Schroeder out, take Richardson out, insert Derek White and Daniel Tice, everything's fine. And that's not how this team is built right now. The pieces are here. I just don't know when the full entire 48 minutes of effort is going to come out, because we see it sometimes and other times it just looks terrible, and it really takes away. This is what a 500 team does. We know this from 21-22. The 500 teams, they equally put out bad moments that cancel out all the good, and that's why they're so hard to talk about. They do so many good things, but then on the other end, they do so many bad things that immediately cancel out all of those good things. And that's what the Celtics are running in right now. They are running in that 500 record, and it's pitiful to watch at this point in time. It's pitiful. It's January 27th. When are we going to see it? When are we going to see it?